Ireland, the final frontier. These are the adventures of camping with idiots to get hyperthermia where no one has gotten hyperthermia before. Hello and hi, I'm your host Big Al and welcome to Camping with Idiots. This is a special episode that we've kind of planned up because during the COVID-19 crisis we unfortunately can't go camping. So me, Fresh and Jay have decided to do a few backyard camps and just to again give you the feel of what we hope to be doing when we actually go out camping properly. And basically I hope to set up a tent, show you my equipment, sleep out in the backyard, maybe tell you some history, and hopefully we'll have a little bit of fun on the way. So as you can see here, I am in the backyard. Hopefully in the future we'll be coming from mountainside tops and at the side of beaches and stuff and doing some true adventuring, but we also want to kind of lighten the mood a bit with this whole COVID thing and to sort of let people understand that you can even have fun at home and you can definitely do a little bit of camping. It's also a great way to try out new gear that you've bought online and you kind of want to make sure it works properly before going up on the side of like a mountain and then realising there's a gigantic hole in your tent or something. That has only happened twice to me, by the way. So I'm going to start setting up my tent and I'll talk you through it as I go along. Hello, hi, as you can see I have all my gear out here in the backyard and the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to set up my tent. It's a 3-man pop-up tent. I really like it. It's kind of handy and convenient. Again, if you've got a larger group, maybe 6 or 7 people, obviously it is great to have like a big tent, and with that number of people it is very handy to set it up. But when you're camping on your own or 1 or 2 people, it's much handier to have a pop-up tent. So I'm just going to go pop up the tent now and I'm just going to let the camera run and you can see me putting up the tent and hopefully it won't take too long. Okay. So as you can see, I've after popping up the tent. Again, before you go camping, it's always great to check out all your equipment and have everything ready, because when you go to try and find a camping site, especially when you're wild camping, it can take a long time to find a proper area to camp in, and half the time when we're putting up tents, it's almost in the dark. So the last thing you want to do is to open up your gear and find that half your pegs is missing or your tent isn't working properly or something. And again, another thing to do when you are camping outside is make sure you have a nice level flat ground to put your tent on. I've also faced my entrance of the tent away from the wind at the moment. Also, if there is a campfire at your site or that, it does be good to have the entrance away from the campfire so that the smoke isn't always blowing to your tent and that. So I'm going to start setting up a bit more equipment. As you can see, the tent's put up, but the next thing I have to do is I have to put up the guide wires and I also have to put down the pegs because it is a bit windy today, and especially if you are out wild camping, you need to make sure your tent is firmly secured to the ground, because the last thing you want is to come back and find that your tent is blowing away. That has only happened once, by the way. Okay, so as you can see, I now have the guide wires put up. I basically put one up on each corner, and also the pegs in the corners here, very important. Never stretch the canvas too tight, because as you can see now with the wind here today, that it is blowing, and if the canvas is stretched too tight, it'll actually rip your tent. As you can see, here's the mallet that I've been using to put in the pegs, and this is a good example of why you should face your tent away from the campfire, because on other camping trips we were beside a campfire and sparks from the campfire lit on the tent and actually burnt through the canvas. We were lucky that the tent itself didn't go on fire, but if it was close enough, that is a good possibility. So I'm just going to finish putting in this last peg in here, and then we're going to go inside the tent and set it up for you. So now I'm just opening up the tent, and as you can see, inside this tent is a mosquito net, which is very handy as well, so you can leave the front of your tent open up and yet you're nice and comfortable inside. So this is our sleeping space. Again, a nice 3-man tent, plenty of room. I like to use a double air mattress, which is the next thing I'm going to show you how to pop now. Hi, and welcome inside my tent. As you can see, this is a double skinned 3-man tent, and basically I have a double person air mattress. I like to have a double person air mattress because firstly I'm quite a big guy, and secondly just for comfort, because air mattresses tend to halfway through the night the actual air tends to seep out of them and they get lower and lower, and by the morning you wake up and you are basically sitting down on the hard ground. So to inflate the air mattresses I generally use a battery operated pump. As you can see, that's one there. Not electrical operated, because again, if you're camping out in the wilds, it's generally hard to get an electrical socket. Also, a battery operated pump is much easier than actually trying to use your breath to blow it up. I've been told I do have quite a lot of hot air in me, but it would still take me a long time to even blow up this. So very simple. What you do is just connect it to the connection there, turn on the pump, and it starts pumping. Generally takes about 5 to 10 minutes to inflate a mattress like this properly, and basically once you basically have this working, what I do is I set it up here in the corner. I just leave the pump going away, and then I can go and grab my other bits of equipment and start bringing everything else in. Again, as you can see, this is a double skin tent, so if it rains or that outside, the rain falls on the outside of the tent and the inside is quite breathable. There's also air vents and mosquito nets in it, so that helps keep out any bugs and insects, but it also helps the actual tent to breathe. To be honest, we always go for double skin tents camping. We never go for a single skin tent, because when you wake up in the morning it's just like being in a swamp, and if it's very heavy rain, the rain can seep through the outside of the actual canvas as well. So if you are thinking of buying a tent, definitely buy a double skin tent. Buy one, say 1 or 2 people larger than the number of people that are actually going to stay in the tent, because people will always have gear and equipment as well, and it's much easier to have a nice large space to put all your camping gear in. And as I said, it just adds a bit more comfort as well. As you can see, this mattress is starting to inflate. I'm going to leave it for about 5 or 10 minutes now, and then we'll get back. I'll show you a few bits of my other gear. As you can see, my camping mattresses after being inflated, so I've after disconnecting my pump, I'm going to put that away with the rest of my gear. Now I've started getting my lamps out for the night, because again, sometimes when you come to campsites it's already getting dark, so it's very handy to always have your lamps and torches at hand. So I generally like to keep one inside my tent. This is a battery operated lamp. As you can see, very easy to turn on. This one I really like is also, it's actually got a sensor with it, so I can actually turn it on and off at will. So I can even leave this outside my tent. If I go off to use the latrine or something, go off to the bushes, can't find my tent when I come back, I just press the sensor and it will activate the light on it, and I'll be able to see it. So again, lots and lots of lights is very handy to have. So I always have another backup light as well, along with a torch. So as you can see, battery operated. This one is missing its handle because I've been using it for so many years. I tend to get very comfortable with equipment. Some people like to try the newest, latest gadgets, which is basically, if you're into gadgets, it's a fantastic thing, use the gadgets. But if you're into more practical equipment, use the practical equipment, whichever you think is the best, because lots of people will give you advice on what to do with camping, but it is generally the best thing to cater for yourself and make sure that you are happy with the gear that you use. As I said, for me, I like comfort. I tend to carry an awful lot of gear with me. Some people go very minimal, and for them it's probably better, whereas I tend to camp near cars and that, so I can actually just take the gear out of the car and put it there. Some people love to hike up mountains and that. So again, cater for yourself and make sure that you are happy with the gear that you have. Also, it is good to get a little bit of gear, try it out and get some more gear. Just don't go crazy, buy a ton of gear if you've never gone camping before. You know, because there's no point having a ton of gear and then realise you don't really like camping. Because camping on a sunny day on a beach can be fantastic, but when it's very windy, very rainy, rough and cold, it can be miserable sometimes. Some people love that, but other people hate it. So again, maybe try a little bit of camping first. Go to kind of campsites that before you even decide to go wild camping, because you can find yourself in some pretty nasty situations. It can be fairly rough sometimes, but on a day like this in my backyard, it's absolutely great fun. And again, if you've got kids or that, get them into it. You know, have your kids come in and play in the actual tent and stuff. So that's my lamp. This is my tent, and the third most important thing is the sleeping bag. Again, as I was saying about being comfortable and being safe, a sleeping bag is very important. This type of sleeping bag can actually be used without a tent, so I made sure to go with the warmest kind of sleeping bag that I could get my hands on. So again, if anything ever happened to the tent and it was left out in an emergency in the cold, I actually have a sleeping bag that I can sleep outside in. And that's another reason it's always great to go camping with friends. Never go camping on your own if you can avoid it, because some areas can be quite treacherous, you know, rocks and again, the actual campsite, which we will show you more when we go do proper camping, but where you're choosing the campsite is very important. The last thing you want to do is camp in a ravine or a gully, and then halfway through the night it starts raining and you realise that gully turns into a stream. That can be very dangerous. So here's my sleeping bag. I also bring loads of pillows with me. Yes, I am one of those campers. Again, comfort all the way. I tend to have 2 pillows. Some people just use the actual jumper. Some people might even use rocks. But so that's my setup. Now I hope to tell you a little bit of history, not actually camping history, because again I am mad and obsessed with archaeology and Irish history. So I was thinking I'm going to tell you a little story about when the Normans came to Ireland and the first time that they took over the city of Dublin. It was a kind of a landmark event which most people don't really know about anymore. And again, involving the Normans, there's a lot of blood and a lot of treachery. So I'm going to show you that next, so I hope you enjoy. So in 1169, the deposed king of Leinster, Dermot MacMurrough, invited the Normans over to help him win back his territory. So he made a deal with Richard Fitzgilbert de Clare, Strongbow, to come over and send over some of his Norman knights to help. And if Strongbow did that, Dermot would give him his daughter, Aoife MacMurrough, as his bride. And also when Dermot died, he said he would give him the lands of Leinster. So Strongbow sent over his troops, and for about a year they helped out Dermot MacMurrough, and basically Dermot got back quite a lot of his lands. So then in 1170, Strongbow landed in Bannow Bay in August, and the first thing they did was they took Waterford City. So then, to consolidate themselves and to also win the most, I suppose, richest city in Ireland at the time, which was Dublin. So as you can see, here is Dublin. Here's the Hiberno Norse, which runs at the moment. There is Asculf, the king, and here's all his troops. And this guy's a pirate, because the Hiberno Norse, who are descended from Vikings, did a lot of slave trading and raiding, but by this stage in 1170 there were more traders than raiders. And the Normans, as a point of fact, were actually also descended from Vikings, because Normandy in France, where the Normans come from, is actually named after the Northmen themselves. Normandy means Northman's land. So Dermot MacMurrough got his Norman troops all together, and they decided to march on Dublin. However, Dermot's spies heard that the High King of Ireland had finally gotten together a lot of the troops of Ireland, and they were standing in Clondalkin ready for the Normans. There was approximately about 30,000 of them. To be honest, when you read the old records, that you can never really go by the numbers too much. They say 30,000, even once half of that, that's 15,000, which is still quite a lot of troops. So they were in Clondalkin, outside Dublin, waiting to attack Dermot and the Normans. But Dermot MacMurrough, having been the King of Leinster for a long, long time, knew all the ways in and out of Dublin. So he actually marched the troops along the mountain tops around Glendalough, and they actually came in that direction, and they completely bypassed the Irish contingent, which were waiting to fight them. So when the Irish seen this, they actually decided to go home and leave Dublin to it. See you lads, chat later. So they left, and then basically the Normans were camped outside Dublin. Now there was only probably about 4,000 of them at the most, along with Dermot's Irish soldiers. So then Dermot decided to send in Maurice de Prendergast, who was here, who, to be honest, out of all the Norman knights, was probably one of the most honourable, and always seemed to be the guy that was sent in to speak to people, probably because he didn't insult them or tried to kill them straight away. So Maurice was sent over with Lawrence O'Toole, who was the Bishop of Dublin, and also Maurice O'Regan, who was Dermot MacMurrough's seneschal, or basically secretary. So they went over to chat to Asculf and to basically get him to give up the city. So they were haggling with each other to try and find the best deal, to see how many hostages that would be handed over, and then the city would be handed over peaceably to the Normans, and the Hiberno Norse would be allowed to still live and work there. So while this deal was going on, a couple of the Normans, Milo de Cogan and Raymond de Grew, who were quite young and vicious, as a tour guide once told me in a castle in Wales, the Normans were basically professional killers. That's what they did. They were fantastic at killing. As you can see, these Norman knights have got shields, hearses, armour. In reality, the Normans were dressed in mail, pretty much head to toe. They had very good swords and were very, very effective warriors. So anyway, so when Milo de Cogan and Raymond Le Grew, they split up and went to two different parts of the city, and they were camped outside. When they realised that basically Maurice de Prendergast was arranging a truce, they decided to attack the city anyways and took the Vikings unaware. So they charged in over the walls and started killing everyone, like this guy here. So yeah, so the Normans were in killing everybody. As I was saying, they killed and attacked this guy, and they even cut his leg off. And they flung this guy off the wall. So basically, in reality, when the Normans came into Dublin, they killed and slaughtered as many people as they could get their hands on. But Asculf and about 2,000 of his men managed to get to the ships. Go to the ships, because the good thing about Dublin is it was basically a port city and was right at the sea. So the Hiberno Norse got on the ships and managed to escape, and they went to the Northern Islands, like the likes of Isle of Man, and went to basically visit their cousins to drum up support for another invasion to come and take back Dublin City, which I might tell you about sometime, but basically it didn't work out very well. So the Normans, through treachery, while they were arranging a truce, just going in and decided to kill everybody anyways, took over Dublin City, and Dermot MacMurrough also got Dublin. So he kind of left Milo de Cogan in charge, and Dermot went back to Ferns, and Strongbow went back to Waterford City, and Dermot died in December in about 1170, and then Strongbow started taking over all Dermot's lands. And then Henry II in 1171, realising the Strongbow was becoming very powerful, decided to come over and to basically take over the lands that Strongbow was taking over, and just make him Earl of the place instead of King. So that's the story of the Norman invasion of Dublin, and I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you liked this special episode of Camping with Idiots, and Jay and Fresh are going to do 2 COVID backyard camps videos soon. If you liked what you saw, could you please subscribe and like our video and share it to as many friends as possible. We also have a Facebook page. Well, now, as you can hear, the wind is blowing, and the the night is starting to come in, so I'm going to curl up with a good book for a while. I'm going to do a bit more reading on that, and hopefully I will see you out there camping soon.